You know, so I started trying to do other things like yoga and everything. So I'm doing yoga, you know, I'm an old gangster, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing yoga, you know. I was doing anything I can just to shut this thing up, you know.
Yeah.
And one day, man, about 18 months in, it was just completely lifted.
Wow.
And I've never had an hallucination since then, and I've been just a whole new man.
Welcome back to the zoo, and we got a special guest today. He's a writer, musician, among many other things. He put out this amazing graphic novel. There's a lot more to it. There's a play and a potential TV series attached. My new friend, my new homie, Daniel Medina. Welcome to the zoo, man.
Thank you.
His fellow Cuban
Oh, that's why you were saying que hola.
from, from LA, not
I
Miami.
thought, yeah, he's an LA Cuban. That's why he's calmer.
That's his joke all the time.
Because we were, well, it's true. Like when I got here and I met all the Cubans from California, I'm like, you guys are so much calmer than Miami.
Yeah, más tranquilo.
Yeah, but because he was saying que hola on the email, because he was introduced to us by a friend, Justin Boo, who's also been on the show many times. I thought you just knew that I'm Cuban, and maybe you're savvy to the Cuban thing.
Say what?
I thought yeah.
Say what? Like, what did he say?
He was saying he started off by saying que hola. So I'm like, oh, okay.
What is that,
So he's
yeah, it's kind of like, what's up?
Oh,
yeah.
dope. Okay.
So I mean, cause I was skimming through the emails and stuff, and Justin and Moni told me about, you know, about yourself. So I was thinking, okay, he's probably Mexican American, but he knows Cuban, so he's saying, well, no, you're Cuban too, okay?
Yeah.
But born here in LA?
But born in LA, yeah. I was not raised really in Cuban culture. I was raised in like Mexican, people of color. I was raised in Gardena,
like
California. You know, east side of Gardena, kind of close to Compton. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know.
Well, because you know Cypress Hill, they're Cubans, but they grew up around Mexicans, so they're gonna have a certain.
That's the trip, man. Because Louis from Cypress Hill, we were kids together, man. You know what I mean?
Dang.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we were homies until that first album dropped, and then I kind of lost his phone number. But we're about to get back in touch with him. You know what I'm saying?
You got. So let's get to this, man.
He's
Below
gonna see you on
Sycamore. It's an amazing graphic novel. I was just thumbing through it, but I saw some of the stuff you guys have on the website. The art's amazing. The story's amazing. Tell us a little about you know where it came from and what makes it personal to you.
Well, early in recovery, you know, you hear a lot about the higher power. Yeah, we always hear about this, right?
Right.
And everybody gives credit to the higher power, but we never talk about the other power that drove us in to the rooms, right? That grabbed some of us, you know, by our shirt tails and just was dragging us around our life. So my contention is there's a power there, and it's dark, but it's very strong. And it's stronger than you are, and it's stronger than you and me, and we need one another, yeah? So we at least need help. So that's kind of like the message, is that this thing is too strong for you to do by yourself. And those of us, especially to kind of zoom in on it, those of us Latino men, we're kind of taught to just do it on your own. You know what I mean? Don't depend on nobody. Do it yourself. You could do it yourself.
Figure it out.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so that becomes difficult with this. It's almost impossible, as a matter of fact. We desperately need one another to stay sober.
Now, when you mean this, you mean addiction.
Addiction, yeah.
And so do you mind sharing a little bit about what you were dealing with before you went into the recovery process, and then how it came to, you know, how it led you to this creative process?
Okay.
What were you dealing with in terms of addiction, if you mind sharing?
Yeah, so at the end, when I came into the rooms of recovery, I was 255 pounds, my gums were bleeding, my liver was not really functioning, my kidneys were gone. I was seeing things that weren't there, and I was hearing things that weren't being said, so I was having heavy hallucinations. And I still wanted to keep drinking. I was putting alcohol in my body, and I was just throwing it up, and I was still trying to make it work.
Wow.
You know, so that's how sick I was when I came to the process. And it took me about 18 months to get the hallucinations to go away. So like when I believe the power of God finally entered me, it was so strong that it just flipped me on my head. And like a big symptom of that in my mind is that you can't stop sharing this message. You know what I'm saying? When something like that happens to you, nothing to do with me really, but a lot of God's grace, you know, shined on me. It was like all I could do was talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And like I was a musician. I still am a musician, but my father was a musician, you know, and he taught me music. So I was doing that, and then one of my uncles got me into poetry when I was a kid, and so I've been writing poetry since I was like 16, and started writing this idea that you know, this thing's too strong for you. So we're representing the monsters in the comic book are represented as the power, that they're stronger than you, but they will bow down to the other power, you know what I mean, the big power, but that's the only thing they'll bow down to. So I wanted to show that, hey, you see this over here, it's too strong, and we need one another if we have a chance against this. And so that's how the comic book came about, was to kind of say, look, we're taking a little tiny piece of the script that I wrote for the television series, and we add a little science fiction, then we make a comic book.
So this isn't exactly like the TV series. This has a little bit more.
So what I did was I wanted to create content that you'd have to kind of do some exploring to get all of it. So, for example, the play, pure drama, doesn't have any of the monsters in it. The comic book has almost the whole story with the Native American, which I'll tell you about that later. There's a Native American underlying story to it. And then, of course, you get all the drama and all the fantasy stuff in the comic book, which you won't get in the television series.
So the TV series is more realistic.
It's got the demons in it too, but it doesn't have the whole storyline. Like, you have to kind of engage in all the content to get the whole storyline.
And go ahead, Nikki, you had something?
No, I was gonna say, when you were going through such, this really trying time in your life, like when you were going through it, did you ever think that it was something, that you would turn into art?
Gosh, that's a great question. No, I didn't think that. I mean, I was suffering to the point where, like, I was seeing these demons I'm talking about out the corner of my eyes. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh, well, that's just me and AK.
Not me.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like, I mean, it was kind of like really how it went down was like I wasn't even trying to get sober. Because people try to get sober. I wasn't even doing that. I was just being a nasty man, just doing whatever I wanted. Yeah. And I believe God took me and He grabbed me and He said, you have value. And you're coming with me.
Believing that, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like God just grabbed me and did His thing, you know what I'm saying? And it was like I was 18 months of being lost in this thing, So I started trying to do other things like yoga and everything. So I'm doing yoga, I'm an old gangster, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing yoga, I was doing anything I can just to shut this thing up,
Yeah.
And one day, man, about 18 months in, it was just completely lifted.
Wow.
And I've never had an hallucination since then, and I've been just a whole new man.
How long ago was that?
So it was 18 months in, so now I'm almost 6 years sober. So it was about 4 years ago.
Oh,
something
dang,
like that.
congratulations.
Yeah.
You're doing great,
Okay.
man.
Thank you, yeah.
And so when did the play come about?
So I started writing the play in 2018,
Okay.
and then a friend of mine came to my house. This is how this whole thing's been going. I was sitting on the couch just like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And my friend comes over and he says, "What do you got there?" And I showed him. He said, "Let me show my friend." So he showed his friend. And then maybe, 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a call. "Hey, we'll put this on at our theater."
So
And
what,
I was
they just read the play?
I read the script and he goes, "Hey, it needs a little bit of work, but I'm interested in putting it on."
And this was here in LA or in the Bay Area?
This was in the Bay Area at the Shelton Theater
Wow.
in San Francisco.
All right, how did you, so you told us before about the play and then how it became a TV pitch, but then it became this graphic novel. How did Danny Trejo and Mr.Criminal get involved in the project, and what part do they play?
Very good. So for Danny Trejo, it was a trip, man, because when I was writing this guy, Mikey, one of the characters who's like this homeless angel fortune teller cat, right? I heard his voice in my head, and I was at my auntie's house. I don't know how many years ago, a couple of years ago. And I go, "Man, I wish I could get Danny Trejo." And she's like, "We know Danny." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, my cousin Tanya, you know what I mean? She's homies with them. Like, they're like aces. Like, he comes to her little kid's birthday party and brings him toys and all that stuff." So, like, we kind of got a warm, intro there. And he was, of course, since this is right up his alley, he was more than willing to help us and support us. And it was a blessing, man. I'm telling you, this thing's like serendipity. You know
Did you, so you, at that point, you only had the play written, right?
At that point, we had the pilot and the play. That was it.
Now, do you have him as a character in the graphic novel?
Yes,
What
we
does he
do.
play in the graphic novel?
So in the graphic novel, he plays this cat right here. So we got a white version of him with the canitas, como así? See that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
With the
So-
canitas.
So this is he plays the role of a guy named Mikey, who lives on Sycamore, and he's kind of an eternal being. And so later on in the television series, you find out that everybody knows Mikey from even when they were little kids. You know what I mean? And so, but I'm not gonna tell you what he really is. You have to watch the television.
And
Sounds
then-
like Danny in real life.
Yeah. And Mr. Criminal, what does he play in the project?
So Mr. Criminal plays kind of like the bad guy. He plays Grumpy, who was the same role that I played when it was a play.
Right.
And so he's definitely the bad guy. And how we got him involved was my partner and my attorney, Brandon Dorsky, was already working with him on a different project, and then him and I got to meet out in Marina Del Rey, and him and I kind of hit it off, and we both wanted to do this together, and he just was real positive about it. He's such a hustler, man, and a businessman, and he was in that movie Bright with Will Smith, and then he was just in Tax Collector with.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a
Yeah.
good one.
So
So just because you gave us a little bit of the broad version to the entire project in the first block, But as far as the comic book follows. Tell us about the central character and maybe just a little gist of the plot that's for the graphic novel.
Yeah, okay, so can I tell you just about issue 1?
Yeah, go
Okay,
for it.
so check it out. So on issue 1, right in the cover on the very bottom, there's this little stamp down there. You probably can't see, but it says approved by the Code of Love and Tolerance.
Nice.
Okay, so that's kind of our code in 12-step recovery. And so the book starts off with, just like every single television series episode starts off the same way, it's going to start off in some other part of time. So we're in 1986 when it opens up, and it's one of the characters, Chucho, who's this guy's best friends, JD and Chucho. They're best friends. And so the kind of the plot line, or the one-sentence thing that I always use, is that Below Sycamore is a graphic novel about the parasitic, demonic nature of addiction through the eyes of these 2 young boys growing up in Los Angeles in the 90s. You know, it was hot back then. So you got Chucho on the back here. He's a younger one, right? And then JD is his best friend, and he's a little bit older than him, so he's always looking up to him. So in the first issue, we get to see a little bit of how Chucho comes into the world. His mom is a crack addict, and they're in a crack house in the very beginning of the comic. And Esmeralda, his mom, is trying to get the drug dealer to hold her son so that she could get 100 rock of crack, and that she'll come back and pay him. You know, but yeah, it's grimy. Yeah,
Okay.
So that's how it opens, and then it goes into, you get some introductions of JD and Chucho, the 2 main characters, and their relationship with the church and Father Ruiz and their father figure. And then you get to see a little bit about the corner where they're hustling drugs, and you get to see Grumpy kind of flex his muscles in this first issue.
I told you he looks like you, though, man. That's amazing, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
So, is it available for people to get? Can they order this online? Can they?
Well, what do you want people? So this is the first issue, but you said you have 100 issues that you're going to release.
At least. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's like the message that you want? Because it does touch on touchy subjects, right? Like addiction. Yeah.
I think like I was saying earlier, I think the main message, at least for this first year of comics, is like, do you see how you can't do it on your own? Do you see how strong this is? Okay. And so we say that same thing so many different ways. Like, see over here, you can't do it on your own. You see over here, you can't do it on your own. You're going to continue to fail if you try to beat this monster of addiction on your own. It's far too strong.
That's amazing.
That's true. It could look a million different
It's
ways.
going to touch a lot of people.
Yeah.
I hope
and the art is really cool. You said who's the artist?
Man, it's so crazy. Like I said, once again, if we could call it Below Serendipity, if that had a ring to it, we would change.
Serendipity, but only we know that.
But I mean, we should change the name. It's just like that. But this gentleman, I put an ad just blindly. I was like, man, I want to turn this into a comic book. I need a badass artist, right? So I just throw something out there. The first guy that comes back is Fernando Kern from Argentina. Beautiful stuff, you know. He sent me this picture of some stuff that he did for this, like the X-Men. And I was like, damn.
Oh, wow.
Like that, and it was perfect
stuff.
because the style is 90s comic book, yeah?
Yeah.
And this is a 90s setting, so it was
is.
perfect.
That's why I
yeah.
vibe with it. Yeah, that does look like an old, cool X-Men kind of artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's serendipitous, but you're still trying to get it. You said it was going to be picked up, hopefully, quién sabe.
As far as the
Nunca
TV
sabe,
series,
nunca
yeah.
sabe.
HBO. Listen here. Be part of the magic.
Well, I think that this is gonna. I mean, I think the graphic novel really helps with it because now they're gonna be able to visualize it. You know?
Exactly.
And they're still gonna be able to get their own thing. Now, I know that you have a website, belowsycamore.com, right?
Yes.
Is that it, Below Sycamore? So if people could log on to Below Sycamore, can they order the copies of this?
Yeah, you can order a copy of it right now. Matter of fact, it went on sale November 15th. We had a really nice pre-sale. And so, yeah, go to belowsycamore.com and buy a comic book. The other little piece that I did want to include is that for the first year that we're selling this book, the first year, profits are going to go to fund a detox center that'll be completely free for homeless people, ex-cons.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
10
good
bed, not a big one,
work.
10 bed.
Yeah.
It's all free, you know what I'm saying?
I wanna give props to really, you and your generation of people that made it up because you said the 90s, yeah, I was in high school in the 90s and I told you about a book I wrote, Fever, you can get it on Amazon, about people that started, guys that were a bit of like your age, like my older brother types, so I was like the little 15-year-old going to these raves and they were like the 20-something-year-olds putting them on, getting in trouble, drug dealing, drug dealer robbing. Somebody gets killed and these are kids and they weren't bad kids, they just got in over their head.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, man. Like in the 90s, man, people were getting in over their head. Not that people aren't getting in over their head now, but the survivors of that era, I've noticed, have taken upon themselves the mission of educating, and you're doing that. And I can see that in your serenity. You know, maybe you weren't this serene back in the day when you were trying to, like, you know.
No, that was no good, man.
They do say it comes with, you know, wisdom.
Brother, and you are my brother. You're my primo for sure. We have to be cousins at some point, being Cuban. You came to California, I went to Miami. But thanks for coming, man. I'm glad we got to make this. We were communicating. It was a little last second through emails, and I'm glad we got to make it happen. When you come back early next year, let's have you back and let's see where we're going with this.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel Medina, man.